Listen, so I'm super excited. I'm a very good friend of Mark's, but I'm also a bit of a fanboy, and like a lot of you have been in awe of his career and his accomplishments, both professionally, but also just as a person. I just really, it's exciting to be here. One of the gifts that Mark and I have kind of given each other is that we are just like brutally honest to a point of assassinating each other's products when they're in the beginning stages of development. But it's kind of fun to kind of catch up with you and see what's going on. So, you know, you've been out of the game for a while, and you know what's happening. What you've been doing?
Well, I took the last year plus, and I worked on my skiing and surfing, and thought maybe I'd take the surfing somewhere, and I realized I'm not going to have a profession in surfing. And I heard I was listed on a surf summit that's going on this week, but I heard Patty said there's like a 40-foot wave coming. I will not be on the wave. So. and my wife, who was on earlier today, Allie, had an awesome boy a couple months ago. So played, surfed, skied, had a baby, and now I'm ready to get back to work.
So you've had time off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We got that. So like, what are you? So what are you doing? What's happening right now?
So I've created a kind of incubator, a product lab, to work on new consumer product ideas that are mainly mine and maybe a few friends. And we're really hoping that we can come up with a breakthrough product idea and take it to market, and maybe if we got to 1 to 2 great ideas in the next 5 years, that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, but that I've known you long enough to know that you're not looking for incremental, ideas. So what do you mean by that?
Well,
I mean, a lot of us in this audience would like to have just one idea, the magnitude of the impact that Zynga has had.
Well, if I think part of where we probably are all having this out-of-body experience lately is that it seems like, I mean, there's so much activity right now that none of us can even keep up with it. Every day there's so many new companies getting funded and launched, and so it feels crowded, and there's a lot of discussion about whether or not this is a bubble or not, and should we be doing this right now? And the reason why I'm so optimistic is, I don't know about you guys, but despite how many interesting apps we come across on a weekly basis, when I look at my home screen, and I don't know if I could hold it up, but I don't know if
let's see it. What do you got there?
I don't know if you can all see this back there, but is there a camera?
Mark has like 9 apps on his phone.
My home screen is still pretty empty. Hold yours up.
Well, wait a minute. Mine's empty too.
Okay. So it tells me that despite how many interesting apps there are, and I've been amazed by so many, there still aren't that many that we can't live without. And so it means to me it's a great time for all of us to be entrepreneuring and trying to invent some of these new services that fill up that home screen.
Wow. So that's going to keep you a little bit busy here. So you've been doing this since you were 28, right? You've been building products and stuff, and so you've got a lot of experience. There's a lot of entrepreneurs and founders in the audience. I'd like to understand, from your first company through Zynga and kind of now, how have you approached this? And what would you kind of tell this group of people?
Well, my take on this whole entrepreneuring experience and journey that we're all on is, in a lot of ways, what we're all trying to do, and my biggest lesson is figure out how to separate our instincts from our ideas. And so,
what do you mean by that?
We all have an instinct for a product. In fact, I registered the domain name smstaxi.com probably in 2002. So I had this instinct that maybe people would like to order a taxi through their phone. I didn't have a good idea around it. Travis and Garrett had a brilliant breakthrough idea that I never had. And I think back on tribe.net, which I founded before Facebook, before MySpace, was one of the first 3 social networks. I had an instinct around social networking and local, but I didn't have the right idea. And because I pursued just one idea, I did myself and all my users a disservice. And what I should have done was try a few dozen ideas in that zone. And so my lesson, and I carried this through Zynga, was how do we all figure out what it is that users really want, what resonates with people, and use the least number of engineering days to get there. And what we did in games was say, how do we figure out where the heat is and what it is that people really want without spending, at that time, it was typical to take 2 years to make a single game. And we said, how do we figure out in 2 months what people want and then make the game or keep going? And so we would take these live services, these games that were a live service, and we would test for heat and for ideas that people really, that resonated with people. And then we would invest much more deeply in the features and the ideas. And so where I've been giving advice to other entrepreneurs and coaching myself is how do we get better and better at taking an instinct that we kind of know is right, but don't be attached to the idea that you came up with, because your ideas are probably wrong and you need to give them room and permission to fail. But if you attach everything to that idea, so if you have investors who believed in that idea and employees, and you're so committed there, then you might not give yourself the room to pivot around that instinct to something that could be, truly breakthrough. And the toughest part is when your idea is kind of good. And this is early days for me and Tony. He came to me and showed me this product he had, Sphere, right?
Yes, Sphere.
And he said, what do you think? And I said, Tony, I don't think it's that good an idea. And I think you should be more ambitious.
He just to be clear, he crushed me. It was crushing. He said, it's not a very good idea. And I think you could be more ambitious.
But what I
sure.
should have said to Tony, and this is probably why I'm not a venture capitalist, but what I should have said to Tony was, Tony, there's some instinct that's driving you to build this product. Tell me about that instinct. Tell me what it is that you are connecting with, because there might be a good idea.
Yeah.
Not to say that wasn't a good idea.
Well, it turned out
it was very successful.
It turned out to be successful, but it took but I think you were right. When I showed it to you, it wasn't fabulous.
It wasn't there yet.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you, just real quick, I think one of the things people don't know about Mark is how dialed in he has been on the investment scene. And he kind of slapped himself there and said he's not a venture capitalist, but he is a prolific angel investor and an amazing angel investor. So when you've done that, how do you what's your criteria? Are you betting on the individual, the founder? Are you betting on some other aspect? You're trying to dive into how they think about the idea?
I think people get to good investments from a lot of different angles, and the first rule for me in investing is don't have rules, because
that sounds like a cop-out. What's that mean?
Well, because you find one amazing investment, and that might be all that matters. But I come at things from a macro standpoint first. So I say, if you pick the right body of water, you might not even have to pick the right boat. So if you pick a really, target-rich area, but not the right company necessarily, it might do well anyway. And conversely, you might pick the best entrepreneur or an idea you love, but it might be a really terrible body of water. One of my best friends started a restaurant chain. Not a very good business to be in, even if you're successful. And so he was great, and people loved his restaurant, but it wasn't, a great business. But what I do is kind of the poker analogy. So I like to have a lot of antes, develop a lot of hands, pay as little as you can to develop the hands further, and then, but really try to see where you've got pocket aces. When you see a Facebook or a Twitter, try to hope that you're in a position that you can invest. And I think the investors that I'm most impressed with are the ones who took a deal that no one else wanted. So, when John Doerr invested in Netscape, it was at the nosebleed high price of 20 million pre, which today, is like a YC deal or something. But that seemed really risky when he did it, and he wasn't the first investor they went to. He was the only one who really wanted that deal. Or when Yuri Milner invested in Facebook, it was at a time that not a lot of people were beating a path to their door, and he came and he didn't negotiate on price. So he had a vision, and he connected with their vision, and so those to me are the most impressive kind of investors.
So you did Facebook, you did Twitter. What else have you done?
Well, in the past few years,
Yeah.
I've invested in a couple companies in China, JD.com, which
Wow.
is public now, Xiaomi, which is killing it. I don't know, does everyone here know Xiaomi?
I bet, how many of you actually know it? Wow.
Wow.
More than I would have thought.
Yeah. Tony he was embarrassed to have to pronounce Xiaomi, which we've all been there. Like, you look at the spelling and you're not sure, but I think they may be, end up one of the most important companies in China.
Wow, that's amazing. Let's turn the table a little bit. So, I think we know a lot of, you're a public figure, and you've spoken a lot, and you've been written about a lot. But, kind of what's not on your resume? Like, tell us something about you that you don't
Not
know.
on my resume. There's a lot not on my resume. Growing up, I had every job in the restaurant, from busboy, waiter, runner, cook.
Bartender?
Bartender. Actually, the best job I've ever had is being bartender at Burning Man. And if you guys ever go to Burning Man, the best job you can have there is being a bartender, because if you've hooked people up with a great drink in the middle of the desert, I promise as you see them for the rest of that event, they're going to remember you and hook you up. So, just free tip
Wow.
for your next Burning Man trip.
You know what? Mark's going to be pouring drinks here in a minute.
It's pretty fun to bartend.
What's your favorite drink to make, man?
I like making a really good dirty martini. It's an art form. It's just impossible almost to get it exactly right.
Knowing Mark like I know him, I'm sure he's like, he makes the best dirty martini
Obsess
probably
over it.
on the planet. So, okay, so you've done things like that, but like I'm always kind of curious to get into the stuff that's a little off the resume, and like how it's helped to form you, right? And how it's kind of helped to drive you. And so what'd you learn from that, or from surfing? I mean, these are the kind of things we wouldn't find on your resume.
Well, if you take surfing, and if some of you are really surfing the 40-foot wave, I'd love to hear about it. I won't be next to you. Surfing I've gotten really into it in the last few years. It is a really good metaphor for what we're all trying to do as entrepreneurs, because you really have to face your demons, and you have to face this horrible uncertainty of, going over the falls, or, making the drop on a really big wave that you just have no idea if you can do it, and the consequences of getting it wrong are pretty bad. At least they have been for me. You get hold downs, the board hitting you, just not fun to get it wrong. But when you have the faith and you actually take the drop and do it, it seems so easy. I mean, if you do it with confidence, you're on the wave and you can't believe that you actually were even nervous about it. And a lot of times, I think that's what the startup experience is like for a lot of us, that you have this incredible uncertainty, you don't know if anyone's gonna like your product, and then people love it. And it's just this great feeling, and in retrospect, I think it always seems easier than it really was.
Wow. How many people here surf? That's awesome. Again, maybe we should go surfing here. It could be fun. So let's go even a little bit. That's kind of very early formative stuff. But there's something you said to me once. When I asked you about how you became an entrepreneur and a founder, and you literally said, I was 28 and washed up, and I'm just thinking like, you're one of the most caffeinated people I've ever met, and you're always amped and ready to go. But what do you mean? Like, what was that like? And
well, and again,
what did you do about it?
I don't know how many of you have this kind of similar work history to me, but I was basically unemployable at least in my 20s. And so I had what I call a broken resume. You know, it doesn't look good when you interview somebody and you keep seeing these jobs that were like 1 year, and sometimes it's like the same year. It didn't even overlap to the next year. So it's like 1994 to 1994, or just 94. Let's leave it ambiguous how many months. So I definitely did not hold down jobs for very long. And for me, when I started my first internet company, my first company, like some entrepreneurs, today it seems like a really good career option to go be an entrepreneur. And you know, in 1994, it wasn't considered a great career option. It wasn't considered highly likely. And for me, so I was at a venture capital firm of sorts, and they were suggesting that I find other things to go do. And so when I said to Tony my career, you know, I was kind of washed up. I felt like I'd made a series of bad career choices that led to being in the middle of DC when internet and tech was just starting to take off. There was no internet whatsoever there, and even being pushed out of the one firm I was at. And all my friends they went to McKinsey and Goldman Sachs, and they had made all these great career choices. So there I was, but I didn't have that much to lose career-wise. My resume was already broken. You know, it wasn't going to look worse. And so I said, what the hey? You know, I'll go be an entrepreneur. And actually, I met, some of you may know Fred Wilson. He interviewed me. He was a junior VC at the time, and I interviewed with him to be like an associate or something or other. And he said, the world doesn't need another VC, but I need an entrepreneur that I can back. So do you have any ideas? And I said, as a matter of fact, I got one. And he gave me this 4-month loan, which at the time was a really amazing thing to do, like a 4-month demand note. It's definitely worse than the terms you guys are seeing today. And that got me started.
Wow. And then from there, what was your first business?
It was called Freeloader.
That's right. And that was like one of the big early successes. I remember when I first moved to the Valley, that was like, wow, you're a big fish.
Dating both of us now.
Well, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, listen. So you know, as you kind of embark on Super Labs, you know, what do you envision that you're going to be launching 1 product, 10 products, thousands of products?
You know, I think you got to give yourself a lot of space and permission to fail. And so I'm going to launch products, experiment, try stuff, be ready to look stupid. It's okay. But my hope is that I can get to a single product that really matters to people and resonates, and it's a big hope.
I got a feeling you're going to get there. Listen, thank you for your candid honesty. I think one of the gifts that Mark gives all of us is just how refreshingly honest and direct you are, and thank you for that.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks.
Thank you.